one of the ways that lean in and almost one of the easiest ways is building that connection to your audience as a leader, as a face of a brand. You know, in the time where people want influencers, they want authenticity. You see people called out so quickly for not being authentic and consistent on that. Building that personal relationship with your customers and getting right out there. So making yourself, in a way, the influencer that you want to be seeing out there, the brand, showing yourself there. And so social media is just the number one easiest way to be putting yourself there. And having that speaking directly to the camera, talking about your product, talking about it, why it makes it special. Having live shopping events is one that is obviously really big in APAC. A little bit of a slower start here in the US, but still gaining traction little by little. And then that message is put into an email so people are getting in and getting that touch point from you, and that there's a point of view to it too. And feeling comfortable, also being willing to say like, oh, we didn't know that, we screwed up, or we made a mistake, or this is a learning thing too. And responding and having those really personal points. And then you slowly build, you make yourself open, you slowly respond back to people and you build that up. And I think that's how you, little by little, but again, these don't happen overnight. It takes time to be patient, which is always tough and frustrating. But that's how I think is the starting point.
One important question is, how do people get their brand out there and kind of differ it from other people?
Well, I think that this is so many products look the same. It's so easy to duplicate. Everyone's following the same trends, or especially now with social media, the same micro trends are coming out, and it's runway to right now, which makes that lifestyle factor. So what does actually distinguish your product from everything else there in the market? And it's the brand connection, the brand story, whether that is going to be talking about the founders and where that story came from, and that really connection, that personal connection there. You see that with a number of companies. Obviously, Anine Bing is a great example. Faraday is a great example of those, where it's really founder focused. Other companies, like right now I'm at Simkhai, where we really are, the branding aspect is the craft, and we really focus, and every element of that is the craftsmanship. Obviously, you see that in a lot of luxury when you're looking at it. Hermes, a Louis Vuitton, that's where you're looking for there. But that's how you're going to break through the noise. And you see it even at department stores. It's these Nordstroms for years have all those customer service stories that came about how you can return anything no matter what, and they'll accept it. And that's what breaks through the ice. That's where you can really build in community. It can also be a giant branding moment there. And it's finding why is someone going to shop from you specifically versus when there's 5 other options that are a very similar product. Why would they come directly to you? And it's incredibly important. As much as you just want to have that shine, you need to have your every single touch base echoing those same moments over and over and over again. And it takes time. It's not going to be something where you just suddenly send out, here's my one branded message one time a year. That'll carry you through. It does. It's going to take years to really build that cohesive brand experience that a customer is getting it time and time again across your social media, across your email, across your site, etc. And that's how you start gaining that reason for them to come specifically back to you.
Hypothetically, very hard to do, but let's assume that I'm a woman in my 30s to 40s and I'm trying to start off a brand. I have an idea of what could work out. I kind of have product ready as well. For the purpose of this example, it can be any product that you choose, but I have it ready, but I want to kind of stand out across the rest. You kind of gave a very brief example of how to do that, but if you could give me, let's say, through this example, steps that I could also achieve it as a new brand starting out.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways that lean in and almost one of the easiest ways is building that connection to your audience as a leader, as a face of a brand, so that you are really get, in the time where people want influencers, they want authenticity. You see people called out so quickly for not being authentic and consistent on that. Building that personal relationship with your customers and getting right out there. So making yourself, in a way, the influencer that you want to be seeing out there, the brand, showing yourself there. And so social media is just the number one easiest way to be putting yourself there. And having that speaking directly to the camera, talking about your product, talking about it, why it makes it special. Having live shopping events is one that is obviously really big in APAC. little bit of a slower start here in the US, but still gaining traction little by little. But it gives people that opportunity to ask you questions and get to know you and understand it. And you're sitting there talking about the product, the fabric, why you chose those pieces, why it's special, and the story behind you, or behind the product itself. And then carrying, again, it's also not just doing it on social, which is the most obvious one, but it's carrying it out through other touch points, making sure that you have a section on the site, which could be like Aaron's picks, and they're your favorite top items that are constantly in there being refreshed. And then that message is put into an email, so people are getting it and getting that touch point from you, and that there's a point of view to it too. I know I mentioned Anine Bing, but I think she does a really fantastic job of always being a little bit rock and roll. And that's always going to be her edge across the product selection, which she carries. That really carries through. And you know, that's a key element of the brand that is really pushed through step by step there. So, and feeling comfortable, also being willing to say like, oh, we didn't know that, we screwed up, or we made a mistake, or this is a learning thing too. That's, and responding and having those really personal points. And then you slowly build, you make yourself open, you slowly respond back to people, and you build that up. And I think that's how you, little by little, but again, these don't happen overnight. It takes time to be patient, which is always tough and frustrating. But that's how I think is the starting point.
To kind of, let's say, carry on that hypothetical, I've kind of started off, I've got my footing well placed. I also now kind of know how to make my brand stand out. I've now come across an issue where my director of marketing has come to me and said, hi, we should talk about incrementality. And me being a very simple-minded business owner, I have no idea what that means. So one, can you tell me what that's all about? And two, what is the importance of incrementality, especially in digital marketing?
Yeah, so incrementality is really fun. I love this topic. I think it's something that you really see has shifted across the majors in the last 2 years, really becoming mainstay. And when you're looking at, so kind of what it means is everyone focuses on different attribution system. If you're looking at your numbers, especially from a marketing point of view, you're saying, I'm on Google or Meta or wherever you are, I'm putting in $10 and I'm getting back $50 from it. But there's a difference between what you see getting back in Google Analytics, which is close, not exactly anymore, but close to last click, versus what you're seeing in Shopify or whatever your platform is, versus what you're seeing in channel. Google might be telling you is that they're getting, and you're really trying to say like, what does this mean? Why does one place say that I'm killing it and doing great? Why does some place else say that I'm really struggling here? And then there was other people, first touch versus last touch, and really looking at what is the right answer, which is incredibly hard as a marketer to decipher. And incrementality is really the idea that what is the actual number that this is bringing in? So, in general, usually it's somewhere between that kind of last click number and what in-channel is taking full credit for, but it's doing a series of tests. I a lot of times hold out test, which if I turn this marketing off, what is actually being driven by that? And sometimes it's a lot more than you expect. And sometimes it's a ton lower than you expect. And the benefit is it really helps you also justify higher funnel spend. A lot of times you'll see that, if I'm bidding on my brand name, people will come, they know it. And so even though the return on that might be quite high, or like a retargeting campaign should have a higher return for it, people would have found me anyways. They know my brand name. They're going to come shop with me. So the incrementality of that isn't as high as it might seem if I'm just looking at the last click numbers or the in-channel numbers, versus if I'm doing something that's a branded campaign or something that's very top funnel, think maybe a TV commercial, where that is really an awareness play, really storytelling, very high, it's, on TV. So you're potentially not seeing really that a click-through action coming in from there. And so that quote, last click or click performance there looks very low, but actually has quite a big significance because you are reaching a longer customer. And it lets you do these tests, also helps you look at different attribution windows. Sometimes you want to be looking at a longer time period because it versus 7 days versus 30 days, which you're kind of typically looking at. And it helps you kind of do tests to see maybe this is a really big benefit, but it's going to play out for quite a long time for me to see that. And suddenly when I drop my influencer budget, for example, and think, oh, I'm not seeing any immediate effect, but then come your Black Friday and you're suddenly not seeing as many people returning to your site and purchasing, oh, well, this actually did have a huge effect on me. And looking at your incrementality numbers helps you determine that, so you don't get into those, oh, shoot, it's the end of the year, what happened kind of positions there. There's a lot of tools that are out there that help you do it. Measured, Triple Whale, there's plenty out there. But I think it's incredibly important and it's a hugely useful tool. And yeah, typically to test it, you're just doing holdout test. It's not rocket science. It's easy to understand. It's not a crazy algorithm happening in the background. All of us can understand a geo holdout. And then you just look at the performance over a period of time and you really kind of etch in and try to get a hold of what your incremental revenue is. And then a part of that too, as you start getting more comfortable in doing those tests, you see that those change at different times of the year. So your incrementality during a sale period is also going to be different during a full price period, or maybe, seasonally, depending on your product, will also have a change there. So it really helps you hone in on your performance and where you should be investing your dollars.
Now I'm getting into, let's say, user content or just content in general. I think nowadays it's a booming economy itself to have creators kind of provide UGC as well. How do I get the most out of these creators without, of course, crossing any lines?
No, I think that influencers, creator content, however you're calling it or speaking to it, it is a hard one to, you really see such a wide breadth of what's coming in. And also creator content / UGC, user generated content from your customer, also very much blends together, and it all starts to be the same a lot to a consumer, from a consumer point of view. So there's lots of different types. So first, if you were just looking at, I'm going to say more of an influencer program, content creator program, you want to decide what are your goals for that. Is it something that I want to be driving brand awareness? And I want to be aligning my brand with the right people that really represent my brand, that are really honed in on the same aesthetic and audience and customer, and that's who they're reaching. That's one tier of it. And you're going to have different KPIs for that. You're going to, be looking at their audience, their reach, their engagement that you're having on that type of partner. Then you might have a different type of influencer program where you want it to be driving conversions. That might be a completely different program than, most likely will be a different program than your brand overarching story partners that you're working with. Those are going to have a niche, very engaged audience who might not sit exactly where you think your brand sits. And it's great to be aware of those and know who those people are, because you might think everybody is this one bucket of, we're the coolest in this way, or we're the most in this way. But really, in area you're not targeting, you have this whole other niche group that is following into you, and they really trust and believe and engage in this person. And this is a mom group, which they love, people are listening and really believe that sage advice. And so that's going to be your audience that really can help you find conversions, sales, build that audience, find new niches for you. And that requires a lot of testing to do. This is probably one of the hardest parts of building an influencer program, and why sometimes working with agencies that have those experience, know those buckets already, is that there's so many out there. And yes, you want to be looking for engagement. You want people that have past histories that can share with you kind of some numbers, but it takes a lot of testing to find what is exactly the right niche, and then honing in and finding the right cadence and repeating with their audience every 3 to 6 months, or what is that right portion of time that it works for you with what their customer is actually interested in coming back for.
My experience with UGC, it's kind of hard to differentiate a sponsored kind of post versus actual user generated content. And I believe this is, again, more specific to my example, because I don't really know how it works everywhere else. But we were just kind of told to be a content creator for the brand without really actually experiencing the product at all. Is that the same, or are we doing it very wrong over here?
So I think it goes, just from a ethical point of view, I would lean towards you want someone to actually have touched your product and seen it.
Right.
Honestly, from a consumer point of view, I don't know if it makes the biggest difference. If it's not reflecting the actual product, obviously, whenever someone is speaking to it, or, you see the ads where people will have a blue screen and they're just pointing to a product above you or showing what they're shopping on a website and that they're interested in. If they're giving highlights and the customer gets it and it's totally different, it doesn't match, that will come right around and bite you in the booty very quickly. We all know how fast comments come and how easy those can blow up, and people like to build, or the Reddit chains start building up and word of mouth gets out there. So you really do want to stay that it's consistent to your actual product itself and not to be highlighting those factors. But in the difference between what is a sponsor post where I'm paying you to do this versus I'm a consumer that bought it and I'm giving a review of the product, honestly, in a large part to a customer, it doesn't make that much of a difference. They're seeing a real person using it. They're seeing someone talk about it. If you're staying consistent, then that really translates through to the customer no matter what. As much as, I think we like to put things in different silos. At the end of the day, it's how the customer is perceiving it, how they're seeing it on a body, they're seeing somebody else talk about it. And what's most important is the relationship that whoever they're either trusting is a brand that you're putting it out and they're seeing it put out in a certain way so they can see how it's moving. It's on a person, it's video, or they're trusting you to talk about it because Aaron, I trust you and you are endorsing this. And that's the relationship that you're building up on that piece of it. Of course, when you get into really then digging in and almost another layer that will go beyond this is outside of really video content creators, but then there's reviews that will tie into that. Those I would say you should never fake or get anything that is a sponsored kind of situation. That should always be authentic, real reviews. I think those come across pretty easily and people will talk about when something is fake or not real there. So when you're really getting that customer view, don't delete things that aren't saying good things about you, use real ones, and then incorporate those in other ways as well too. So product review, I would put as a little bit different than a UGC/content creation bucket. And the content creation UGC can be a little bit more curated, put out there. Product reviews really stay authentic to what's real and what's coming in, and show the brand personality coming through and how you're responding to them on that side in a different kind of way.
The next big thing, which is kind of relating to the influencer side, which is video content. We're doing a video podcast, which I believe can have its pros and cons compared to a regular audio podcast. But what are your thoughts on just how video is going to move in the next year or so?
I feel we are already at the place where video is everywhere. The biggest challenge that I have as a marketer is that everyone wants to film everything horizontal. And I keep pushing that I also need that vertical video as well, because video just continues to expand where everyone is thinking of, your Instagram story and having that moment. But video, again, on your website on PDPs, the more that you're showing video, this is how a lot of that influencer content creator can help create the sheer amount of video, because video is more costly to create, right? And that's a very large challenge that brands have. But video is really in every single touch point of the customer journey that you're having at this point. Again, across the website, as much as you can have it in on your product page, showing people moving about the product. It really helps people get that understanding. You see conversion rates go up across the board. Again, looking at price points, low to high, you just consistently show that having video there really does make that difference. YouTube is one where I think before seemed a little bit more niche. People were ignoring it a little bit more. And that is Google has put a tremendous amount of work into building up their YouTube audience. Now it's not just younger generations. It's also not just male. It's really across the gamut. That is no longer a channel that you should be ignoring. CTV is one that I like to talk about. YouTube as CTV is the number one video YouTube place to be, or TV commercial kind of place to be sitting at. Obviously, linear also has its point. So you want to be collecting as much video everywhere. And you shouldn't let, it's very intimidating, especially when you are looking at some of those, maybe you feel really comfortable saying, I'm going to be on TikTok and do a video there, because that can be very casual. It can be just my phone holding something, and that's what that platform calls for. You don't want it to be overly produced. So it's intimidating to go to the other side of that. And I would almost recommend people to give themselves a little bit of a break. Like usually people are more forgiving than you expect them to be. Something that when you're thinking about, across social media, sure, there's the lines of it. TikTok's the most casual, and then an Instagram's a little bit more formalized than that. But the same content will work in both places. If you can't get it, different content, just try it out and test and do lots of it. Look at the trends that people are posting on. A lot of that same video is completely fine to have on your website, especially as you're getting into a product page itself. Maybe it's not, that handheld video. Maybe that's not what you want as your hero image on the site. But when you're getting onto a product, people want to see how it works. People want to see people using it, how it moves, if it's clothing, what the functionality is, if there's anything that they might not know in a still photo. Use the video that you have. And then as you're getting into something that is a little bit more, you're looking at TV. I've had partner after partner consistently say, this has to have somebody talking in it, or it has to have at least voiceover is the very minimal, which adds this whole other element of sound quality and cost. And I've seen very little difference when just using music overlay or text overlay, music playing with text at the bottom, kind of giving that feel. Sure, maybe there's a little bit of a difference, but it should not be stopping you. You shouldn't let the best stop you from good enough. Like it's still getting out there. It's still getting in front of consumers. People are much more forgiving. And if you just wait for the perfect thing, you're going to be trying to reach $100,000 video budget when you have 20, and 20 will work enough for you to get out there and get on these platforms.
I've noticed how there are few faceless channels that kind of create content purely based on AI. They have an AI narrator, an AI generated stock images or videos that they use. Do you believe that this will still be, let's say, a good choice for video content in general? And why?
I don't think it's quite there yet for the masses, but I think it will be. I think that this is the big video switch that we will see within 5 years as people get more and more used to using AI, trusting it. I think right now you see it still with content creators, how much brands feel a nervousness of using content that's not directly coming from them. And I think that same feeling comes from an AI point of view as well, too. You hire your brand marketing team, your creative team, and they have that very tight vision, and releasing the reins or even being open to releasing the reins feels scary.
Right.
But cost are cost. And as they become more affordable, as we're able to be training AI models, especially models that are using it, I know it's really right now where you're seeing like the large language models tend to be the best AI tools that we have at this moment, like a ChatGPT. Content creation, videos, those are improving all the time and they will just get better. So you'll be able to give that direction and say to tweak this, and then that'll allow people to make so many iterations of the same video, or you'll be able to give, this is one thing that works, make 10 versions of it, or change the order of it so I can be testing and seeing that kind of content. So I do think AI video it's not something I'm doing at this point yet, but creating video, creating ads, creating content for your site. But I definitely think it's coming pretty quick.
I really do appreciate how you kind of explained everything into very simple, broken up terms, and not something where, a professional like myself can easily understand it. You kind of gave it to all of us. In my way to thank you, I want to kind of give you a 2 to 3 minute shameless promotion for yourself and for Simkhai. Go ahead. This will be your space to kind of just advertise basically anything.
No, thank you. So I'll take advantage of the Simkhai point of view angle there. So I'm our director of e-commerce over at Simkhai, which is created and been around for 15 years from Jonathan Simkhai, who is a CFDA award-winning designer. And as I mentioned on this podcast, really, it's the most beautiful craftsmanship I've ever seen. I'm so lucky that I work in the atelier. It's a Los Angeles-based company, which usually you get these higher-end brands are New York or obviously in Europe. And to have that in Los Angeles and see the craftsmanship right there in front of us, it's amazing. It's one of the most beautiful products that I've ever seen. The structure, the edge that goes into it, so much detail on how something hangs and falls on your body. Obviously, as a woman, that is so essential in the confidence that you put out and you put yourself in. But in the last years, Jonathan's expanded out to be doing more men's apparel as well too. And that's this whole other bucket that we're seeing being built out, and how the difference of what's important in the men's bodies and how that presents itself. So I would highly encourage we're definitely most known for our events. If you're going to something special, kind of gala or a formal dinner, your New Year's Eve moments, your Valentine's dates, things like that, of something that's going to be really special. But it really carries that same quality and focus on structure into their ready-to-wear collections, into your day-to-day outfits and separates, so that they feel good, they look good, it lasts. It's everything about it. It's one of the most exciting companies that I've been in. And it's just really on this great upward trajectory, which is not easy in luxury right now. So seeing that movement and that attention is definitely super fun to be in. So definitely recommend people check them out. Simkhai.com, SIMKHAI.
See what I mean? Before I could even ask you where can they find you, you've already got it. Thank you so much for this chat, Nicole. Again, like I said, you've made it very easy for me as a host. So again, thank you so much for that too.
Thank you.